Harihi Om, Yushmakam Sarvam Kushalam Asti Kim. So in our last 3 classes we were looking at the different words in the masculine, feminine and neuter ending with the U and the E, but that's not the end of the story. There are many other words, and so today's lecture, which is lecture number 39, is going to be an introduction to the nouns in the masculine ending with the in, and of nouns in the neuter and feminine ending with the n in the 3 vachanas. So I'll do an introduction of the Pullinga words ending with the in, which we've already looked at in passing, the words like gunin, yogin, etc. And then I'll do an introduction of the Napunsakalinga and the neuter words and the Strilinga words ending with the n kara, or just the consonant n. And of course there'll be a little practice of the dhatus that we've looked at earlier, but just bringing it into play here, and then a little bit of attention on building your vocabulary. So the parichaya of the third person nouns in the singular, dual and plural for the masculine words ending with in, and the neuter and feminine words ending with the n. So you'll identify similarities and differences, and that's what it's all about. It's all, Sanskrit is entirely about recognition of patterns and then effective applications of those patterns in your daily life in terms of speech and your written exercises. Let's move on. You're very familiar now with this kind of a table, and the gaps are for you to fill up. Let's start with the word jnanin. So jnanin very deceptively in the first case becomes jnani. So you would expect that to be, so if somebody told you jnani gachati, you would think it is a feminine word ending with the e, long e. And it's not impossible in Sanskrit because it doesn't have to do necessarily with the actual gender of the thing that it is denoting. So Kalatram being a woman, a wife, is still in the neuter. So this confusion is a very, very legitimate confusion. So what would generally help is if you have at least the knowledge of 1 or 2 other forms of that word. So here jnani in the second case becomes jnaninam. Kam pashyati, jnaninam pashyati. Kena gachati, jnanina gachati. Kasmai dadati, jnanine dadati. Uttamam. Kasmat prapnoti, jnaninah prapnoti. Kasya karyam asti, jnaninah karyam asti. Uttamam. And kasmin pritihi asti, jnanini pritihi asti. And finally, he jnanin ashirvadam dadatu. He jnanin or he jnanin shrunotu. So what do you see here? One important feature in the vocative here is that the jnanin is the same as the root form and not the first case like we have been looking at earlier on. I'll move on to the next word, which is another one that we are very, very familiar with. It's the word nama. Nama, if you don't know the root, can be mistaken to be an akaranta Pullinga word or an akaranta Napunsakalinga word. More the Napunsakalinga word because it is nama and not namaha. Namaha Sanskrite nasti. So nama could be like mitra, but nasti because it becomes, in the second case it becomes nam. It stays nama, but in the third case it becomes namna. Saha tena namna jnataha asti. That person is known by that name. Aham tena namna afayami. I am calling out by that name. Astu. Next, so this becomes namna. Next, nam. So jnani name would, the logic would be namne uttamam, and then from that name namnaha, of that name namnaha, and in that name would be namni or. So you have a vikalpa there. It's namni or namani, and he nama or he naman. Naman, as you see, goes back to the root form there, but in this case you also have nama, which is like your first and the second case, but the first case in here. So that's something important to note. Let's move on to the nakara Strilinga word, and I must tell you right at the outset that there aren't too many words in the feminine ending with the n. And why have I included it here? just so that you have an idea of the similarities and differences with the other words. But in practice, you'll not come across it too often there. Okay, so it's not very technically within our syllabus, but still it is there for the entirety of the picture of these words. So we have Sima, so Siman becomes Sima, and then you have the next one, which is Simanam. So Sima meaning the boundary here, the border, I think. And then you have Simanam Pashyati, Simna Gachati, like for example. Then so this becomes Simna, and it is similar to the neuter word. Next, Simne, again it's the same. The fifth and sixth would be Simnaha, Uttamam, Samanam, and then Simni. So again you see that there is, in a strange way, there is a connection with the neuter words here. And then He Siman, again going back to the root there. Astu. So Uttamam. Let's move on to the next word, which is the next form in the dual. So Jnani becomes Jnani now. And then let's see what happens to Namni. It becomes Nama becomes Namani, and or Namni. This is a feature of the neuter, as we have earlier observed. And Siman becomes Sima now. So very interesting. Now suddenly there is a connection with the masculine. All along here there was a connection with the neuter. Suddenly there's a connection with the masculine. So something you need to remember. There's no other way around it. So you remember it applicationally. That's the easiest way. Astu. Next, Jnanibhyam. For Nama, it will become Namabhyam. And for Siman, it will be Simabhyam. I'm just writing one part of it because you're familiar with the rest. So Jnanibhyam would become Namabhyam, 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 or Simabhyam, 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 Uttamam. Jnani Noho will become Namnoho, or Simnoho. Simnoho. That's a na there, okay? Simnoho. There. Okay, Simnoho. And then at the end, He Jnani now. So that goes back to the first case. And then you have He Namni, again going back to the first case, and He Simano going back to the first case. So that's relatively easy now. Let's move on to the next one, which is the plural form, and we have Jnani becomes Jnani Naha. Uttamam. So they are there, the Jnanis are there, we will say Jnani Naha Santi, and the Jnani Naha are speaking, Jnani Naha Vadanti. Those wise people are speaking, you will say Te Jnani Naha. So the coordination between the pronoun forms and the noun forms have to be well maintained. So you have to have this concept of if then, if this then that, if this then that, very clearly going on. That computation has to be constantly taking place. So Jnani Naha, Jnani Naha. So for a strange case, you have the first two cases which are the same, and then Jnani Phihi, Jnani Phyaha, Jnani Phyaha, Jnani Nam. So again, very interestingly, it doesn't become Jnani Nam like most of the words do, but it is Jnani Nam. And I think the reason for that is also because it doesn't end with a vowel. If it ended with a vowel, you would have to lengthen the vowel and then put the Nam in. But here no, because it's Jnanin, so it stays short, Jnani Nam and Jnanasu. Oh sorry, Jnani Shu. And He Jnani Naha, again similar as the first case. Moving on to the word Naman, so Namani, I'll repeat that, Namani. So here we had Namani, but here it is Namani. Next, Namani for the first second, then Namabhihi. So I'll just write that once for you, and then Namabhyaha, Uttamam, Namabhyaha, Namnam, and Namasu. And finally, He Namani, just like the first case. Going on to Sima, let's see what that does now. So it is Sima Naha, as can be expected, keeping in similarity with Jnani Naha. And then you have Simnaha. So it's a feminine word and it behaves a little differently there, which you need to take into consideration. Then we have Simabhihi Uttamam. So where there is nothing, then you can make an intelligent guess. Then Simabhyaha, and then Simnam and Simsu. Hey Simanaha Uttamam. I'll just go on to the verbs that are there. So again, observe the similarities, differences. Some words are not so important, so don't break your head too much about them now. What is important is that you're able to recognize these forms in literature. So even if you're not able to keep them in your head, but when you come across in literature, because you are familiar somewhere, you have the sanskara of these word forms, you will be able to grasp the meaning when they appear in some texts you might be trying to read. Moving on to the words here that we have, the nouns, the verbs that we've presented. We've looked at them before, I'll just repeat them once for your convenience. So, sthapayati, places, hasati, laughs, next, suchayati, informs, hasayati, to make laugh, khadati, bhramati, to roam, pradadat, da is actually pradadati, pach means to cook, so to cook for someone, pachati. So cook for the, I cook for the wise people. How would you say that? I cook for the wise people. The verb pachami, for the wise people, jnani bhyaha, pachami. Alright, jnani bhyaha, pachami, there. Alright, next, grihnati, take from, and prapnoti, get from. So I get blessings from the wise people would be jnanibhyaha ashirvadan prapnomi uttamam. Next, kripa asti. Kasya kripa asti? Jnaninam kripa asti uttamam. So kripa being compassion. And here we have a few words. So gunin, so the in ending, I should have told you that in the beginning, but the in ending literally means one who possesses. So one who possesses qualities, guna, is gunin or guni. One who possesses mastery is swamin or swami. One who possesses yoga is yogin or yogi. So yogi is not one who is on the way. A yogi is one who is established in yoga. In the neuter you have words like dhaman, which means the refuge or the shelter, heman, which is synonym of gold, and loman, which means the skin on your hair, the hair on your skin, uttamam. And paman, like I told you, means to, it's a word, it's a kind of sickness that itches, but not more important than that for now. We have the full chart and I'd like you to observe that and try and make some sentences by yourself. So let's do an application of what we've just learnt in a shloka from the Gita. It's from the 6th chapter where Krishna tells Arjuna, tapasvibhyo dhiko yogi jnanibhyopi matodhikaha karmibhyashchadhiko yogi tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. So he says, let's do an analysis of that. Tapasvibhyo dhiko. So that is a visarga sandhi, vibhyaha plus adhikaha. Adhikaha, adhiko is adhikaha, uttamam. Yogi, jnanibhyopi would be jnanibhyaha plus api matodhikaha. So again we have another visarga sandhi there, mataha plus adhikaha. Karmibhyashchadhiko. So there we've got quite a few. So karmibhyashcha, so karmibhyaha plus cha plus adhiko. So adhi, and then this becomes kaha, yogi, tasmad yogi. So it will be tasmat plus yogi bhavarjuna. So bhavarjuna will be bhava plus arjuna. Uttamam. Let's see what it means. So we have the yogi is greater of askases. So tapasvibhyo adhikaha. So tapasvibhyaha adhikaha, the yogin or the yogi is the greater of askases. Jnani bhyopi matodhikaha. So greater than the men of knowledge. Jnani bhyaha. Mataha. So mataha means it's considered greater than that. Karmibhyashchadhiko yogi. More greater than the men of works. Karmibhyaha. And finally, tasmat, therefore, yogi bhava Arjuna. Therefore, become then the yogi, O Arjuna. So, I'd like to say it and invite you to repeat after me. Tapas vibhyodhiko yogi jnanebhyopi matodhikaha matodhikaha karmebhyashchadhiko yogi tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Uttamam. So now let's move on. So let's look at another Subhashitam very quickly, and this one says Na guni guninam vetti guni gunishu matsari guni cha gunaragi cha viralah saralo janaha. I just found it so interesting that I thought that even if I've given you a shloka, let me add this because it was really fascinating. So na guni, we have a sandhi there, na aguni. And what does it mean? Those who do not have talent. Do not recognize other talented people. Guninam vetti. So an aguni does not recognize the guninam vetti, knows. We've done the, this is the verb with, okay, with, to know. So he doesn't know it. Then guni gunishu matsari. And those who are talented envy other talented people. Matsari means envious of. Next, matsari is also an in-ending word, okay. Then we have guni cha gunaragi cha. So one, those who are themselves talented and love other talented people. Viralah saralo janaha. Such simple people are rare indeed. Okay, so nice one there, and I'd like you to repeat it after me. Na guni guninam vetti gunim guni gunishu matsari guni cha gunaragi cha viralah saralo janaha. Uttamam. So, a nice quote by Swami Vivekananda on who is a yogi. So, hold to the idea, I am not the mind. I see that I am thinking. I am watching my mind act, and each day the identification of yourself with thought and feeling will grow less, until at last you can entirely separate yourself from the mind and actually know it to be apart from yourself. When this is done, the mind is your servant to control as you will. The first state of being a yogi is to go beyond the senses. When the mind is conquered, he has reached the highest stage. A lot of food for thought there. Some references for you. Finally, santushtirastuvaha. Santushti means contentment. So, may contentment be yours more and more as you go deeper into the study. Shubham Bhavatu.